Welcome back inside a two-man collective here on the 9th of December. It is week 15 of this NFL regular season. We've got a lot to discuss tonight. Cole Jackson is out sick. Daniel Fa'alele, for the time being, is safe. No strays coming his way. At least that's the hope over the course of the next 60 minutes. But there will be, as always, analysis, critique, and debate as well, as you see our menu of options that we have from a content perspective coming up tonight. I'm Bobby Trossett, Jeff Zaribek of The Athletic with me as always, and former Raven Eric Weddle will join us for an exclusive interview in about 25 minutes from right now, and I'm sure that'll be a wide-ranging conversation. Great job on booking that, Jeff, and up until then, you know, you kind of see it, guys, not only on the menu on the left-hand side, but also as this video's titled tonight. Is it too little, too late? The Ravens now find themselves below 500. They are 6-7. They go to face the Bengals in Cincinnati this weekend, Jeff. Don't know if T. Higgins will be there or not, but they didn't need him on Thanksgiving night, and we all watched that unfold just 2 weeks ago. So we'll look ahead at that rematch. We'll talk to Eric about a number of different topics, both big picture and as things currently stand for the Ravens. But most importantly, in the here and now, the Ravens are yet again reeling, Jeff, after a couple losses. This one was close, but at the same time, when you look at the trenches play, when you look at the turnover game, when you look at other areas, particularly on third down, Pittsburgh dominated this team. And now the Ravens find themselves searching for answers ahead of a game that they got to have coming up on Sunday.
Yeah, I think the hope and the thought that this team would find itself, this team would flip a switch, and we'd see the best version of the Ravens as December is probably gone. I mean, these were two games they had to win back to back, and they were outplayed they were outplayed by the Bengals, and then Steelers was kind of back and forth. And now here they are again, and they really are. You can't lose Sunday. If you lose, your season's over. I think in our athletic New York Times playoff simulator, if they lose Sunday to the Bengals, their playoff odds will go down to 13%. So you're pretty much it. It's curtains. So this team that was supposed to contend for a Super Bowl, this team that was billed as having one of the best rosters in the NFL, is now down to basically facing playoff elimination, even if it's not official, right in the face in week 15, which is incredible if you think about it. But they've earned where they are. They just haven't played well, and Sunday was a continuation of that. Bobby, it's just, they look good in spurts, but they still, and like as the basketball term, they got kind of a tough home whistle, but they still did things. There are reasons why you lose. You turn the ball over in your own territory. You don't finish drives in the red zone. You have defensive breakdowns. You have untimely penalties. You have ghastly communication errors, like whatever happened on that 3rd and 2 near the goal line. And as a result, you have a loss. And let's face it, that's not a good Steelers team, and nor are the Ravens. Like that's who both these teams are at this point. This is sort of a rock fight to the finish here, but no doubt advantage Steelers. These 4 games, arguably 2 or 3, at least 2 of the best teams the Ravens have played all year, and then 2 teams that have already beaten them. It's a tall task. They're obviously, it goes without saying, they're in huge, huge trouble. And the thought that they're just going to become this tour de force like they were expected to become, I mean, that's out the window. They just need to find a way to win a football game to keep their season alive.
Yeah, one of those games, by the way, that you mentioned against New England, which is the final home game. And by the way, for the first time since 2015, the Ravens will finish below 500 at home, which feels notable when it comes to the advantage that typically comes with M&T Bank Stadium. And at the same time, that's a place that is really highly regarded when you think about the opponent and what they have to say in terms of I was just listening to Ben Roethlisberger's podcast to prep for the Steelers game, for example, last week. And he was talking about how difficult it is to play at the bank. So that's certainly, and I know there were a couple games, obviously, without Lamar, including that Texans game. But anyway, in your piece on The Athletic, you tweeted out the Ravens looked and said, well, what I was going to say, by the way, to finish that thought was Patriots-Ravens has been flexed. You guys probably have seen that by now. Make sure you plan accordingly. Week 15, or excuse me, is that week 15 or week 16, Jeff?
Week 16. Week
Week
16.
Okay, thank you. So week 16, the 21st was previously scheduled to kick off at 1, and now it'll be 8:20 on Sunday.
And don't be surprised if we hear about the Packers game schedule coming up very soon, because we're at the time where you need to know that. And I don't think that would be a shock if that's a Saturday night type of game too. Obviously, the networks love Lambeau at night and the cold weather, and then you throw Lamar into the mix and a Ravens team trying to save their season. So yeah, it's a tough ride, man. And you hit it on the home. Like, that should embarrass the organization, to be that vulnerable. And look, I don't really blame the fans. I really try to make a policy not to tell fans how they should be spending their money. I mean, like, who am I to tell you? But it was dead. The hour, now granted, I'm in the press box, Bobby. The soundproof press box, but not the actual game. But there just wasn't that much buzz all last week. And there were rows of empty seats when kickoff started. And it just didn't feel like a Ravens-Steelers game for first place. But the Ravens have earned that skepticism from their fans. And what will be interesting here is if they beat the Bengals and they get back into this, I think there'll be some excitement playing the Patriots. But will be interesting if they lose that game. What's the stadium going to be like on a Sunday night where it's probably going to be in the teens and really cold? Is that going to be is there going to be all Patriots fans or whatever? So yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting couple weeks, but they've dug themselves about as big as a hole as you possibly can with what they have next in their schedule and how little margin of error they have.
I definitely have a sense that there's a certain percentage of this fan base that it wasn't lost on them what this team was the first month of the season during that 5-game win streak. There's a percentage of them that thought, hey, I can't get ahead of my skis here, knowing the degree of difficulty or lack thereof when it comes to strength of schedule during that 5-game win streak. And the true 25-26 Ravens were really going to show themselves in this closing 5-week stretch. And as we've seen so far, they have not passed the test to begin that stretch. It began on Thanksgiving night. It leaked in to Sunday against the Steelers. And now, as you said, yet again, another playoff game, and it will be a playoff atmosphere because, crazy enough, even though Cincinnati, their playoff chances are below 10%. If you look at some of the analytics, I think Kalshi had them at below 10%. The Ravens are just over 30%. You better believe that Joe Burrow and company, they're going to be ready to play and feel like they have something to play for if they're still mathematically in it on their home turf, no less.
Yeah, not impossible. 8-9 gets you the division. I mean, I think it's highly unlikely, but not impossible. And there's really nothing other than that Hail Mary. There's nothing the Bengals have left other than ending the Ravens season and sweeping them during the season series. So they'll be plenty motivated to do that. I couldn't believe it. Like, obviously I was paying attention to the Ravens-Steelers game because I was at that game, but I checked the Bills-Bengals score, and the Bengals were up like 2 scores with 7 minutes left or something like that. And then I turned back and looked at the score like 5 minutes later, and they were down 2 scores. I was like, what the heck happened? So they're still playing great offensively. I'd be shocked if T. Higgins is playing after the criticism they got for him. I mean, his head bounced off the cold turf twice, and I would be shocked if he's playing. Trey Hendrickson went on IR. But look, those guys weren't there, and they dragged the Ravens on their home field on Thanksgiving night in front of a primetime audience. So they have plenty. Let's see if the Ravens respond. But yeah, between the, all the stuff that we used to take for granted, Bobby, like they dominated at home. They did great. They were great. Okay, they've lost 5 games at home. You couldn't beat them at night. Nighttime in Baltimore, no chance. What have they lost? 2 or 3 at home night games? They lost to the Lions and they lost to the Bengals. So that's 2. They never lost to NFC teams with Lamar Jackson this year. They've done that this year. It's just all the things that you used to just depend on doing and pulling off. It's just, look, they're not out of it by any stretch. I do like some of the things they did offensively, and their defense finished strong. But look, we can't sugarcoat it. This just has been right now, as of now, and December 9th, this has been one of the most disappointing Ravens team in franchise history. And you can't sugarcoat that. You can't even dispute that. That's it. They have a chance to salvage somewhat, but that right now, that's what they are.
And in your piece this week, a lot of that was looked at. In your tweet, you kind of summed it all up by saying the Ravens looked and sounded like a team yesterday that knows it's running low on time. A few questionable calls in Sunday's loss shouldn't distract from the reality that the Ravens haven't been good enough over the past 3 months to deserve better. Why don't we nip this thing in the bud before we get into any more commentary? Because obviously we've both seen the 3 calls that have been under the microscope by the league, by the media, by the fan base, one of which John Harbaugh was actually given permission to say this on in response to you and your media cohort's questions on Monday at the press conference. And it has to do, of course, with big number 98 on that Chris Boswell field goal, which was a chip shot. And ultimately, this penalty allows them a fresh set of downs, and not long after, in for 6 in the end zone. Listen to John Harbaugh here.
With them the Travis Jones call, or is that another? Do you go a different process because that one didn't go through?
We did discuss the Travis Jones call as well, and the Travis Jones call. They told me I had permission to state this, that it was a wrong call. It should not have been called.
They told you that?
Yes.
All right, Jeff. So the league gave him permission there to share that the Travis Jones unnecessary roughness on the Boswell 32-yarder should not have been called. It was wrongfully. It was wrongdoing. As for the likely touchdown that was reversed and the Rodgers interception that was reversed and then ultimately called down, they stood tall on that one. For those that haven't read your latest in The Athletic, what were your thoughts on sort of the game within the game that are out of the Ravens' control when it comes to the officiating and ultimately New York?
Yeah, I had an interesting perspective because I was the pool writer. The pool reporter. I was the guy on behalf of the press box that got in contact with the referee. The one of the vice presidents of officiating in instant replay, along with the game referee. I had 2 separate calls, so I kind of heard it directly from them, from their perspective, and. We touched on the Travis Jones call. It looked wrong at the time when I was talking to Alex Moore, the referee. He made it sound like there was no way, like he plowed the guy, like it was a call. He obviously missed it. They know they missed it. I think the Ravens were angry about that one. And I think the Ravens were also angry about a couple calls that haven't even discussed. Like when you lose a touchdown a week earlier because of a push off on Zay Flowers, and then you watch DK Metcalf push off a Marlon Humphrey for a 53-yard gain on the first play, that's going to be frustrating. When you see before you're about to accept the final punt, when you're going to try to run the 2-minute drill, and a guy 60 yards down the field on the sideline of the Steelers throws a flag about a holding call that other referees who are right in front there don't call, there's going to be some frustration. I don't like writing about officiating. I didn't write a lot about it in my game story because the fact is the Ravens had plenty of chances to win that game. They had the ball 3 different times in the fourth quarter to where they had an opportunity to drive down the field and get the winning points. And they failed. They managed just a total of 1 field goal in that stretch. The last 2-minute drive was an embarrassment. It looked like a high school 2-minute drill. Like it was a joke. So they wear that. The officiating didn't beat them, but yeah, there was 4 or 5 calls that went against them, and there's calls every game, but there were 4 or 5 big calls and they all went against them, and that they have to live with that. Now, the likely one is the rule. I know people don't want to hear it, but that is the rule. People like Gene Steratore and other officiating analysts have said that's the rule. I don't think they necessarily agree with it, but that's how the rule is, and that's how it was called. And, likely needs to grab the ball and pull it in. Like I saw a clip of Dennis Pitt that say, you look at Isaiah Likey's first touchdown, and he pulled it in. He secured it. He needed to do that on that one. He didn't. So yeah, I thought it was a touchdown. I think the problem with the league is nobody knows what is. I mean, you saw Tony Romo with all the football he's played and watched. He had no idea. Jim Nance, who's as big as a pro as you can get in NFL media and all the big games he's called, he thought right away it was a touchdown. You had all these people, John Gruden, who thinks that was a touchdown, but by rule, it's not. And that's an NFL problem. That's not a Ravens-Steelers problem. That's an NFL problem. Just the inconsistency and the confusion with the rule. As John Harbaugh said, it's about as clear as mud. And you know, like I saw a shot of Rodgers with the knee down, and he was grasping the football. Now, Buchanan also had his hand on it, but I kind of see those two calls. Those two calls are how it's going to be enforced. And you have to live with it. It was a tough break. The lack of consistency with officiating, I think, is the most frustrating thing because you never know what's going to be called on a certain play. But I think the Ravens have a legitimate issue with the Travis Jones one and a few of the other ones. Those other ones you just have to live with and realize that, these rules probably got to get rewritten a little, but there's nothing we can do about that now.
Certainly also add in the fact that you're trying to put yourself in a position for an efficient, clean 2-minute drill. Oh, and before you can even get started on that, there's 2 penalties, one on Keandre Jackson in special teams and one on Voorhees. And all of a sudden you're supposed to be starting with a short field around your 40. And instead, it ended up becoming a -18.
Westry was tackled at the 44-yard line with 1:56 to play. But with the penalty, they go back to the 26. With the penalty on Jackson, and then with the penalty on Voorhees in the first play, all of a sudden you're back at the 16-yard line. So you kind of, you were kind of sunk before you even got a chance to run the first play. Those are huge. It looked like Voorhees clearly held. So I'm not saying that was a mistake. Like, that's all part of it. The Ravens have been their own worst enemy. And you can't blame officiating for everything. As I said, they got a tough whistle. But for the most part, they earned plenty of their problems Sunday too.
And all of a sudden, to put the bow on the Isaiah Likely conversation, Jeff, this is 2 weeks in a row where he's been on the wrong end of ball handling gaffes. And John Harbaugh on Monday had this exchange with Cordell Woodland on the latest incident, which of course was on Sunday.
Likely touchdown, the one that was called not a touchdown. Were you fine with how he caught it? Is that how you guys want him to catch the ball in that situation, trying to keep it out, considering the defender is right there behind him?
No.
And Jeff, I found this really interesting. Not only the short Bill Belichick-esque or Greg Popovich-esque way of one wording there, but then listen to a guy like Matt Ryan, who's sure is not in the building, didn't play the position, but Matt Ryan says this on the opposite. Give me 1 second to load that up for us.
He speaks to both coaching staffs because everybody in that picture was doing it exactly like you're coached to do it. And it happened to work out for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But Isaiah Likely is doing exactly what you're taught in those situations of keeping the ball extended away from the defender who's got to reach all the way through those long arms. Yeah. And he was a click away from getting that third foot down. And so the gap, the difference, the delta between these two teams, it is small. It is tight.
Jeff, there's been a lot on Isaiah Likely since we were last live. Of course, Mark Andrews gets his deal. I'm sure you'll have some thoughts on that in terms of, you told us just a few months ago or a few weeks ago that there were clear discussions being had and Isaiah was a priority. But ultimately he decided to bet on himself. And then unfortunately for him, goes down with that fluky foot injury, stepping on Sanusi Kane, bang, bang play right before the season begins. And then as soon as he comes back, Lamar goes out, and we all know how the season's gone for him individually from a statistical standpoint, health-wise, you name it. But unfortunately for Isaiah, not only is he now likely going to hit free agency, and maybe that'll be a good thing for him personally. He'll ended up being paid, which ultimately that money goes to Mark Andrews. But a tough couple weeks from him just from an operational standpoint and the consistency that they so desperately need from their tight end position.
Yeah, this was supposed to be a breakout year for him, and it's kind of went in the other direction. Not for a lack of effort, obviously. But for every guy, every Joe Flacco who bets on himself and cashes out big time, there's Patrick Onwasu or Bradley Bozeman or Isaiah Likely that, don't sign a deal, don't sign a pretty generous offer, and then have a difficult season and, may not have that kind of money available to him. Now, I think Isaiah Likely will do fine. He's going to hit free agency either as 25 or 26-year-old. He's a young free agent. People are looking for tight ends. He's athletic. He can do the wide receiver stuff. But, these are multiple instances now of kind of some ball handling issues. I mean, we saw it last year, right? In that game against Pittsburgh. Didn't he cough one up deep in their own territory because he was just being careless and trying to get more yards out of a play he wasn't going to get that many yards? They wanted to sign Isaiah Likely. Let's make no mistake about that. They negotiated with him in the offseason. They negotiated with him in training camp. They negotiated him when when he was injured. That was the guy. They just couldn't get him down to a price they were comfortable with. And, so they turned their attention to Mark Andrews, who wanted to be there. I think, the way you break down that deal, they had some space they could use this year where you could prorate the signing bonus a little, which really helped in the future. And they rewarded a guy who they feel like embodies kind of what they're all about in a lot of ways. So, and I'd be shocked now if Likely's back. That's just how it is. You can't pay two tight ends with all their financial responsibilities and needs this offseason. There's no chance in heck that you're going to pay two tight ends over $10 million a year. Maybe you try to get Kohler with a smaller deal, but you can't pay Andrews and Likely on extensions. The only way I could see it is if Likely's market just doesn't develop and you could get him back as kind of a make good, a prove it deal. But yeah, it's been tough because he's been more and more active. Like he's getting open, he's getting the ball on that 4th and 5 where, it was incomplete to Andrews. Likely was open in the back of the end zone, but it was kind of, he came off late and it would have been tough for Lamar.
Hopkins, right?
Hopkins was open too, but if you looked in the corner of the end zone, Likely was standing there by himself. But Lamar had obviously come off that side and was looking towards the right where Andrews and Hopkins were. And, he's just been a lot more involved and active, and he's made some plays, but you got to hold on to the ball. You can sense the frustration with Harbaugh, with the carelessness. And, coaching is getting blamed a lot for the turnovers. I think there's plenty of blame for coaching. There's plenty of things you could point at, but, as someone who's there every practice of training camp and has been there every day pretty much of the season, Bobby, it's emphasized every day. They talk about it every day in training camp. They did a turnover drill. They emphasized how to hold the ball. They have these guys run through gauntlets as other people hit them with stuff, try to get the ball out. They have people ripping at the ball. The defense always is ripping at the ball, even during full team stuff. And they preach it. They have a monitor in their building with ball security, and they measure how someone's holding the ball. There comes a point in time you just got to hold on to the effing football, right? Like you can't have someone hold it for you. I do not blame some of those mistakes on coaches because I see how hard and how much they've emphasized it since July.
Do they happen to tally sacks?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're seeing, and Cole pointed that out this week, veteran quarterbacks are not as susceptible to these this manufacturing pass rush and some of this simulated pressures that they were getting some young quarterbacks on. And, Bobby, we talked about it all year. What was the concerns? The fatal flaws of this team were going to be offensive line, turnovers, and lack of pass rush. And what have we seen in the Bengals and Steelers game? What has hurt them? Those three things. Like your fatal flaws, there's a reason why you're called that. And they have not, in many years, they've been able to overcome stuff. They have not shown any ability to overcome those. And as we said, they're running out of time.
Yeah. John addressed a couple of those topics that we've just ripped through. And by the way, if you're here right now, we appreciate you. Eric Weddle is on deck. At least that's the tentative plan. So we're looking forward to bringing in the former Raven safety for his perspective as we get ready for the Cincinnati rematch. But speaking of that offensive line, John was asked about it. You already know his response has gotten quite a bit of run in the social media space after yet again a failure. And I'll say it for Cole, that right-hand side, with exception to Roger. I thought Roger was busting his ass.
Yeah.
Out there
They
on
gave
Sunday.
him a lot of help, but he may have had his best game.
Oh my God. And Ronnie graded out really well. I know PFF isn't the be all end all, but Ronnie hung in there tough. And yet again, you got this low light reel that seemingly grows by a handful of plays every single week for 77 and Daniel Fa'alele. The Ravens did bring in Laken Tomlinson. We can talk about that perhaps before we finish up tonight. He'll be a practice squad guard option for them as a potential game day elevation. But as you sort of alluded to, that this was coming weeks ago. Ben Cleveland's suspension did come down. We learned that yesterday from the NFL, and then the Ravens shared that. So it'll be a 3-game suspension for Ben without pay. Does that mean he's in? Do you happen to know if he's in the building for that 3-week stretch?
I don't think you're allowed to be in the building.
Okay.
I would have to check on that. I don't think you're allowed to be in the building. I do know you're allowed to replace his roster spot. So technically right now, I think they only have 50, right? They only have 50 on their roster. So they do have maneuver, but they also could bring off Ardarius and Tavius Robinson to their roster. And if they can, you have to play them. Like, what are you holding them for at this point, right? I mean, you're holding them for an important game that probably won't come if you lose Sunday. So, they could fill those roster spots pretty quick.
Here's Harbaugh on the offensive line itself.
With going forward, with the offensive line, we've asked you a lot about changes. Were you pleased how that group played as a whole on Sunday? I know there's been a lot of talk about Fa'alele's play and how he got beaten on a couple of occasions. What did you see when you evaluated him, and as you continue to evaluate him?
Yeah, I just talked to George Moorhup about it. It's all in all, I thought the offensive line played well all in all, and I thought the 2 tackles played 2 of their best games. Roger overset one time, got beat inside on a certain type of pass protection. Tyler played really well. I thought the guards played exceptionally well in the run game. I mean, they were moving people. They were wearing people out, so that was good to see. I thought they were mostly good in the pass game, but too inconsistent probably. There was 2 or 3 each of them had probably. Daniel had a couple in the pass game, and Andrew might have had 1 or 2 in the run game he wants back. But every player has plays they want back. I can think of one where Daniel was hard setting, like a hard play action, where it was more of a drop back pass type protection, got overextended and got beat like that. That really shouldn't happen. I mean, he should be setting a different way there. He knows that. So that was a mistake. Lots of other times it was good. We got beat toward the end on a 2-man inside game, that we could have done a better job on. Keep Lamar clean right at the end of the game there. So things like that needed to be better from the interior guys.
Boy, you had a busy Monday, Jeff, in that press room, getting down to the bottom of a number of things. Nnamdi Madubuike, the status continues to be ominous, right? John could not comment on what was taking place there. You asked about the offensive line. I can't remember if it was you about Emory Jones. There was somebody that mentioned, Emory Jones and why he wasn't in there after his NFL debut. But I think one thing we know for sure is that John's really never going to waver from, while there was some constructive feedback in there, he's not going to waver from that protective approach to his loyalty, the brotherhood, and making sure these guys, get what they need publicly from him support-wise, and then the rest will be handled inside the inner workings of those walls. I think we know how that goes.
Yeah, I think what he's saying, how much he's defended Voorhees and Fa'alele this year, I think there's obviously a different tune being sung in behind closed doors. And we've said this all year. I think the reality is if they felt like they had better, they would have already played better. And they would have made changes. And I think the worst thing you could say is that they don't think they could have better than what we're watching. And that's kind of scary. Now, yeah, maybe you say, well, they don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. They also didn't play Keaton Mitchell for a while and kind of let Carl Lawson rot in the practice squad. And, we're slow to get Mike Green a lot of reps. I get that. All I could say is what they're feeling or what their actions show. I'm not watching enough of practice. I have talked to other people in the locker room, and they swear that this is their best 5. And, to them, it's not, there's no ambiguity to it. So they're playing the guys they think give them the best chance. And, I don't know that Falele's been that much worse than last year, but everything else in the offense has been worse. So it's sort of, again, I said it last, they have not overcome their flaws. They've not masked their flaws by how they're playing offensive football. They've been unable to do that this year, which they've done in the past. Like, maybe you could say he was a little better last year. I don't know. I mean, I still think he has some good plays, and then the lows are just so low. And look, again, we're not talking about Voorhees enough either. I mean, that's not been great either. Like, let's be honest. Like, I've said this before. I think some people think Falele's been better, and it's clearly the team thinks that. So, that's where we are. And now you don't have Ben Cleveland. I'm imagining he's probably played his last game as a Raven, because the 3-game suspension takes you up to the final week. And what are you going to do at that point with him? I don't know. They clearly don't want to play Bullock as a starter. Yeah. Maybe Tomlinson factors in at some point, but are you putting him in a must-win game from the practice squad? I don't know. It'll be interesting. John clearly didn't seem like he thinks Emory Jones can help them right now with how he answered that question.
Much more to come on all that, including our featured guest who just popped into the waiting room. But first, quick episode sponsor message from Sleeper.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code HMA. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
Appreciate Sleeper for the continued support of our program. You can use promo code HMA. You'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions do apply. You can see Sleeper's terms of use for details. It's currently operational in over 25 states, and you can check them out today to learn more. Our next guest, Jeff, thanks to you and your booking techniques, is a second-round pick back in 2007, 37th overall, specifically of the San Diego Chargers. Boy, were the Chargers fun to watch last night. Maybe we can talk to Eric Weddle about that shortly. He's a safety. He played in Baltimore from 2016 to 2018. He ended his career in Los Angeles with the Rams. He's a Super Bowl champion, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 3-time second-team All-Pro, a 6-time Pro Bowler, one of your favorites that you've covered throughout the course of your career, and kind enough to spend some time with us inside the collective tonight. Eric, great to meet you virtually. Thanks for joining us.
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me on. Jeff, good to see you, buddy.
You too, Eric. Our other co-host is devastated. He has a stomach virus, and you're like one of his all-time favorite Ravens, but he can't get his ass out of bed because he's so sick. So the show goes on. No,
the show goes on for sure.
You had a fun night last night, huh?
Oh man, it was Tony and I are obviously close, and I've been meaning to go see him, and he's been kind of in and out of the lineup, but I'm like, I need to go see him, support him, see him live. And man, what a game to go to and support him and see the Chargers win. It's basically Ravens 2.0 over there. So back in the building and just as a fan, I don't like to get into, give me tickets and this and that. So I just went up as a fan with one of my buddies and we sat in the stands and it was awesome. It was just awesome to just be a fan and support the game and support my guys that I love.
And you're coaching these days? Is that what you've been up to with your kids and whatnot?
Yeah. I just finished my 3rd year as the head coach out here, and we finished 9-3, lost to the eventual champion in San Diego in Division I, which is the top division, and it's fun, man. It's keeps me challenged. It keeps me in the loop, and trying to give back to the kids in the community. Try to give them something that has helped me along the way, and so it's fun, and I'm enjoying my break, and then get back to it and start in January.
Eric, it's speaking of it, it kind of makes me feel old because I forgot whether it was an OTA or training camp. your family was there, one of your
Uh-huh.
first years. And I remember Steve Bisciotti drove over his golf cart to your family and put Gage on the back of the golf cart
Yes.
and drove him onto the field so he could get kind of like a frontline view of his dad practicing, which I thought was kind of cool. Now he's one of the top recruits in the country. Like, where did the time go, and what's it kind of like to go through this process, coach him, and also go through kind of the whole recruiting thing?
Yeah, man, it's time flies. It's hard to put into words being able to coach your own son. It's not easy, and especially when you coach them both at quarterback and at safety. There's a lot of butting heads that goes on throughout the season and throughout the years. But he sure is fun to coach. And when he's the hardest worker and he studies and he prepares and he plays the game the right way, it's sure is fun to watch him out there. He is by far way better than I was at any point in my high school career. So he just has to stay with it and stay humble and remember what this game is and what it means to us as a family. And he has a chance to be special, I'll tell you that.
I saw a tweet from JJ Watt that Rivers was running the same offensive scheme with his high school team as Steichen's doing in Indianapolis. So theoretically, for the 44-year-old this weekend who could potentially be starting a game for the first time in 5 years, it should be seamless, right?
My goodness. Talk about coming back from he's been retired for almost 5 years.
Yeah.
And to come back and have a chance, like, it's awesome. Like, I just became the biggest Colts fan for him, and to see how he's gonna do, and hopefully he does well. I'm just worried, if he takes a tackle and his body, and it's not an easy thing to come out of retirement, let alone go out there and play quarterback. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
Eric, you still have a lot of friends in the Ravens building. You still follow football closely. My guess is you're still in a text exchange with some current Ravens and probably former Ravens. What do you make of the issues they've had this year? How surprised are you with some of the struggles they've had?
Do you guys want my camera to be sideways or vertical? Oh, vertical.
You're good, just like that. Yep.
You're good, just like that, yeah.
Gosh, the NFL is hard, and injuries, this, that, and the other is really no excuse, as Harbs has said multiple times. It just seems like there's something off, and for whatever reason, as you watch them throughout the whole season, and it always comes back to techniques and fundamentals, and how do you block, how do you tackle, how do you play together, are you in sync? All those things like really matter at the highest level, and it's not always the most talented team that wins. It's the most connected. It's the ones that do things right. Situational football always comes in to it at that level. And so, it just seems like they're a little off. They're not out of it by any means. Fortunate enough to be where they're at and still have a chance at the playoffs, and the division is pretty insane. But I think if they can just find a way to figure it out, they can still get it done and have a chance.
Sizzle came on one of my programs earlier in the season, and as John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin kind of go toe to toe as the longest tenured coaches, respectively, by a year that separates them, it gets louder and louder, if you will, from a fan base perspective and media coverage as the years go on. And one of the things Sizzle said defiantly back in September, so a lot has transpired since then, was, hey, once you walk out onto the gridiron, onto the lines, and you cross those lines, it's all about you. And that comes with a level of accountability, essentially backing Harbaugh. How do you view assessing blame when underperformance, given the expectations with this team, the way that this roster has been constructed throughout the Lamar era, particularly in the last couple of years? How do you assess blame?
I mean, there's never, as a team, players, coaches, like, at the end, everyone knows who needs to play better or who needs to improve. Coaches know it too. Better calls situationally, like, oh man, I wish I would have called something different in this situation. I mean, it happens every game. So there shouldn't be much to blame. Like, the eye in the sky never lies. And so I just think when you're not doing the routine things correctly, like the correct depths on the routes, the completing swing passes, not turning over the football, not giving up big plays, tackling on defense, making the offense work, like all those things that we preach and talk about, when you're not doing it, it becomes hard to win football games. And so players play, coaches coach. And I've always said this, and Jeff can attest to this, like, when we lose, it's because of us. Like, we just didn't get it done, and it's our job to execute. And whatever the play call is, like, yeah, sometimes the coaches make bad calls. Well, it's on us to make it a good call, and that's gone on throughout my entire career. Like, yeah, there have been better coordinators than other coordinators, but at the end of the day, even though if the call may not be good, you can make it right as a team, and when you're playing together and doing those things that win football games. So it's just a rough patch. They had a rough patch. They got out of it. They got to 6-6, and they dropped one last week. But they're right there. They're one game out. So let's just go get it done and then see what happens in the playoffs.
Eric, I fight this battle all the time with fans who have this perception around here that one of the biggest criticisms of John Harbaugh is he wants all yes men. And they don't tolerate alpha males here. It's everybody has to think and talk like Harbaugh. And I always tell them the story. I don't know that I've been around a locker room more alpha males over the years, like Suggs and you and Steve Smith. I used to see you and John Harbaugh battle verbally on the practice field from time to time. You used to compete. Like, you did that right in front of the media. What is John like? Like, when you hear that, what is your reaction to that? And how much is John willing to take input, constructive criticism, ideas, all that?
Yeah, I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. What I've taken from Harbs, as now I'm a head coach, is I want my players to let their personality shine. And he talks about that all the time. Like, be you, be who you are, and just own it, right? Like, if you say something, own it. If you talk about someone or something, then you got to own it and back it up. And so I've always respected that about Harbs, and he's never not willing to talk to the leaders and talk to the guys on the team that he trusts and are an extension of him, right? And his vision and his culture. So we're definitely not yes man. There have been plenty of times where I've talked to Harbs about something that I felt that was needed to talk about, and he listens, and he either makes a decision off of it or he doesn't. But he's always willing to listen and do what's best for the team. It's never about Harbs. It's never about an individual. It's always about the Ravens. It's always about the team and what's best for the team. So when people say stuff like that, it's just kind of what you see when everyone's saying the same things in the media. Then that's actually a good thing, because it means everyone's together and united. But behind closed doors, there's definitely tough conversations that are going on about what needs to happen. What do we need to change? How do we get this fixed? And everyone has a hand in it, right? It's not like we're all in it together. Like, it's funny that sometimes players think like, oh, the coach has it out for me, this, that. It's like, if a coach doesn't want you to be successful, then he gets fired because his position group stinks. So it's everyone's in it together, and I think that they can ride this out. It's got to start with Lamar and being consistent. I think the injury has hindered him in a sense, where maybe he's not that explosive and not trusting his running ability. So now he's got to really sit in the pocket and get the ball out. And when you don't get the ball out and you hold on to it and you're not able to get away like you may have been accustomed to, well, then there have been some issues with that. So I think he gets back to playing his style and playing at a high level. That changes a lot.
Sure, we'll get back into Lamar here in just a second. I did have a follow-up on the Harbaugh approach. How would you best describe the differences between what you've seen of him in the public eye when it comes to like press conference, podium, media setting versus behind the scenes setting, meeting room setting, things of that nature?
You talking about Harbs?
Yeah, just his approach to give our audience a feel for, sometimes your approach behind the camera, especially for guys that are, for example, guys that are struggling right now. There's a right guard by the name of Daniel Fa'alele who is really struggling, right? And he's catching a lot of deserved heat, right? This is a matter of fact. And there's been times on Mondays during his day after game press conferences where he backs him. And of course he's going to back him. But I guess what I'm wondering is how is that approach different behind closed doors in meeting rooms and things of that nature?
Yeah, I mean, again, there's like I remember seeing a clip, and I think it was from this past week, where they were running basically like a split zone action, and Linderbaum wasn't attached to 77's hip, and that guy cut across his face. Well, 77's expecting that center to be there for him. And I know everyone was killing 77 on that play, but in my mind, that's on the center, where the center climbed to the second level. So I think a lot of times, and the coaches know this, but to get in a big old 40-minute dissertation about every rep on whether it was a positive or a negative, we just don't have that time for everyone to understand really what has been his issues. Obviously, he's had some negative plays, and I'm not denying that, but there are also some plays where it's not his fault that he's still getting blamed for. So on the inside that building, he's very intense. Like I remember we played horrible against, I don't remember what game it was. We just played awful. I think we lost by a good amount. That next meeting we had, Harbs got up there, and for 3+ hours, he got up there. No one said anything, and he went through every play, offense, defense, special teams, and called out every single player in that film. Okay. And so I know what's going on behind closed doors, right? Like nobody's getting a pass. Everyone's getting coached up. Everyone's trying to fix the issues. And especially it always starts with Coach Harbaugh.
Eric, you have an interesting perspective about Lamar. Let's forget for a second, kind of his struggles the last couple of weeks.
I'm not like people in the thing, like I'm not capping. I know more than anybody in this place. So I think you guys should just trust what I'm saying and understand that there is no reason to cap in here. So go ahead.
He can see your shit live. In other words, live chat. He can see what you guys are writing. Just so you guys know that.
Go ahead.
Let him know, Eric.
So you practiced against Lamar, 2018 rookie Lamar. Then you played against him in 2019 and was his first MVP year. What did you think when you were watching him kind of grow as a young quarterback? Like when you're practicing against him 2018, did you see the signs of a guy who've ultimately become a multi-time league MVP, a face of the franchise guy, or are you even surprised how kind of quick his ascent was?
Oh man, he should be a 3-time MVP, and it shouldn't even have. I mean, it was. I don't even know, like the most ridiculous thing ever last year that he wasn't MVP. And I think when he just had greatness year in, year out, he kind of like, they just found a reason not to give it to him. So do I see his ascension? Man, like what he did last year from the quarterback position, I really felt like he had taken that next step of really killing people with his mind and his arm, and not relying so much with his legs. And I felt like that was really the next step in his progression of being that year in and year out. And then this year, I think like he's regressed a little bit from, I coach the quarterbacks, so I study a lot of quarterbacks. And I'm not saying I'm a quarterback guru, like I'm not saying that, but there are some fundamental things that I see that I watch them that just aren't in line with consistent quarterback play. And it can easily be fixed. And it's mostly like footwork and just eyes and fundamentals of just everything in sync as a quarterback needs to be on par when you're making throws and you're being consistent and getting completions. Like completions are everything for a quarterback. And I try to say that to Gage as he's playing quarterback and just trying to, reiterate those fundamental type things. And so I just think like it's just a little bit off with his footwork, and when he backtracks into the pocket at times, trying to escape, where if he climbed the pocket and just stay where you are and get the ball out. But those things that he's done, and he's done it at a high level, and he's done it better than anybody. So I know like he can. I just think like just as the team, like something's a little off, and he can easily correct those things and get us back to playing at a high level and winning games.
How would you divvy it up, you think, in terms of like, is it distrust of the offensive line? Is it the limitations with the lower body elements? You know what I mean? Like when you talk about football, my mind goes in a couple different directions. We know of at least 4 known ailments that he's dealt with: hamstring, ankle, knee, toe. And we've obviously seen the lack of pass protection.
Yeah, he's obviously dealing with more than we have any idea, right? And so it's easy for us to sit here and say, well, yeah, like why didn't you just sit in there and like rotate a little more or not back? Like, okay, like it's easy for us, and I know it's it's like as a former player, like I try hard not to like be that type of guy who critiques, because I know how it is, and I know how it is to like not practice all week and try to go out there on Sundays. Like it's hard to go play at a high level when you don't practice. Like I did it once where I didn't practice all week and I played horrible. And I always try to tell and express that I need to practice, because I know if I practice, then I can go and at least try to put my best foot forward on playing at a high level. So I think there's a lot going on that we don't even know. And he's trying his best to lead and trying to lead our team. So I would never not like tip my hat to him of just being out there. I just know like he is that big of a difference maker and the best in the league, that when he plays at a high clip, like we're almost unbeatable.
Eric, I want to get you out of here shortly. I wanted to ask you though, as a pro, you versatility was a big deal for you, the ability to do a lot of things at a high level. What do you appreciate about Kyle Hamilton's game when you
Oh
watch
my
him
God.
play?
Yeah, man, he is like a souped up version of anything that I could ever be. And it's just the way the style of game. I think he's much better closer to the line of scrimmage than he is at the back. I'm not saying he can't play the half and play deep. Like I just think he's so impactful of blitzing and covering and playing the run and just letting his instincts and his talent be close to line, a lot like how the Chargers do Derwin James. Like that, those type of players are so impactful that you want to get them in the mix. And so I think getting such an underrated trade was getting Alohi from the Chargers and being able to put Kyle back down to closer to the line of scrimmage of being that difference maker. And you saw how our defense expanded and got back to playing the right way. It was an underlying move of getting him back to the line of scrimmage. So he is one of one. I know in the building of how he leads and how he works and just that impact. He's so fun to watch, and big fan, obviously.
Last two for me. The best way to describe your son's game, 1, and 2, would you ever be receptive? And maybe this has already happened. Feel free to not share that if that's the case. Would you ever be receptive if your phone rang from a coaching perspective at the NFL level?
So first with the coaching, because I've been offered every year a secondary position in the NFL. So that's just not in the cards right now. That type of commitment, and my kids are in school, so it's just not something but I've been offered multiple times. Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah, no way.
What's up, man?
My dad's like a big fan of
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, that's what's up. Thank you.
Can I get a picture?
Yeah, real quick.
Picture quick.
This is the good stuff right here, Jeff. Look at
Yeah.
There you go. Good to meet you, brother.
I thought he was outside his house though.
No, yeah, I'm at the actual school. I was having a coaches meeting and whatnot, so
okay.
and I gotta run out of here in 1 minute to go take my daughter. But yeah, so I think I think I'm ultimately meant for that. If coaching, right, like coaching high school and being a head high school coach is a lot, and it's hard when you're at the elite of the elite and around like-minded people, and you're trying to bring that mentality to the high school level is kind of far-fetched, but I enjoy it at this point, and I think it's a perfect fit for me right now where my life is and my kids. So I think eventually I can make my way if I'm still looked at in that manner from the NFL, which is really humbling. And then for Gage, gosh, I think he is an old school. He plays the game the way it's supposed to be played, in the sense that he is a hitter. He plays with a physical nature that he stands out on film because he just plays the game that it's supposed to be played, right? And so, and then you add the talent in the team and the leadership and just all those other things that you see a kid that I tell coaches this, that he is a guy that will turn your program around. But everything that he does, not just on the field, but what he'll bring off the field. And I think that's probably my what I see in him is how he lifts others up and how he can bring others with him, in understanding that this game is meant for your teammates and you need all your teammates to be successful. And when the team has success, then the individual has success. So I think he sees that, he buys into it, and he wants to be great. He wants to be better than I ever was. And he's a big thinker. So I just got to keep him in line on that journey and help him along the way.
Thanks so much, Eric. I know you got to run, but it's been awesome to have you and catch up with you.
Of course, anytime. Let me know the next time you guys want me out. Maybe for the playoffs, I'll come on and give a little synopsis of the opponent or something. But I love you guys. I love the team, and always supporting out here in California.
Eric, thank you for the time. I got a pry on your way out too. Were the Ravens one of those calls?
Yes, they were.
All right.
Yeah, they were.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
You got it, boys.
Thanks, Eric.
Best of luck with the recruiting process. That's cool.
Let me tell you a couple.
I assume you already know. I assume you already knew that.
Well, yeah, couple Eric Weddle, quick. First of all, that guy's the greatest. I mean, just a beat writer's dream. Like, on a Friday of a game week, it's kind of locker clears out, right? Like, guys want to get home because often they're traveling Saturday. It's been a long week. He would always be at his locker late because he's still at treatment. He still had more film to watch. He's the ultimate pro. And I would saddle up to his locker and just it was more of just shoot the shit with him. But he wouldn't give away secrets or anything first of all, he trusted me to know I wasn't going to burn him. But he'd tell me, look, if we win this game, we're going to have to do this. And here's the key matchup. And here's what we're going to need to do. And I would never write any of that stuff, but it allowed me to watch the game with a more critical eye. And he didn't give away any state secrets, but he talked to you like a human being. Not in the NFL nowadays, everything is so top secret. And Eric didn't subscribe to that. He built his relationships, and if he trusted you, he'd give you an idea of what was going on. And I never forget, I remember, what was it, Ray Lewis one time said something negative about Joe Flacco, I think, or I forgot whether it was construed. It was a criticism on Joe, and Eric talked to the media that day and is like, yeah, to protect Joe. And he's like, did that dude put a ring on your finger? And I'll never forget, because nobody shoots back at Ray Lewis. And Weddle did it respectively. But yeah, he had balls, man. He would talk and he didn't care. And yeah, the other thing, Bobby, he was close to being hired here. And I don't remember the circumstances. I don't remember if it was a front office position or a coaching assistant or a position coach. He's going to get whatever job he wants in the NFL when he wants it. Let's face it. He just says that. But it was because COVID and everything sort of shut down with COVID, and you had to limit how many people were in the building, and traveling was difficult. So COVID was a big reason he never really got hired here. But yeah, it's awesome. As I said, his kids were so young, and now I'm reading about the kid getting scholarship offers to Michigan, and it's something, man. You just knew, that family's athletically blessed, and he thinks the game like a head coach. So it does not surprise me that his kid's on the fast track.
Man, you think some of these kids too that are right around his son Gage's age, right? Like Phillip Rivers is coaching his son now. He's coming out of retirement, as we discussed. You got Matt Leinert's son that's out there. You got Gage. I mean, these are all kids that of guys that you covered, right? I just saw when I was looking up Eric just to get spruced up. He's 40 years old, Eric.
I know.
So
And yeah, I've told the story because when of our sick Canadian friend, when we were going through the World Series, and I used to see Vladdy Jr. running around the Orioles clubhouse as a little kid, and that was just like, I love him now, like, but he was just this little kid who was just running down the clubhouse, destroying the spread and swinging a bat around at his father's knee, and now, man, we're seeing these guys become kind of some of the top guys in their sport. It really is crazy.
And speaking of baseball winter meetings, nice to see that Rubenstein was at least willing to compete with Philadelphia on Schwarber. He obviously re-signs with the Phillies, but
that one hurt. I thought he would have been perfect. I thought, first of all, there'd be a warehouse shot. That would have been one. He would, and like I've gotten into the Orioles over the years. I covered them for a while. My kids are so into it, and my son, my oldest, we went to a Philly game. One of our good friends, it works in the Philly front office. So we took our son, our youngest, our 3-year-old, for his birthday. We took him to Sesame Place, and I have family in Philadelphia. We spent some time in Philly. We went to a Philly game and went on the field, and Kyle Schwarber hit a grand slam that night. And I think he had 2 homers, but he had a grand slam definitely. And if they would have signed Kyle Schwarber today, my credit card would have probably been being swiped at the warehouse for season tickets. That's how crazy my kids would have been if they got him. But yeah, I mean, look, they're probably getting crushed, but I've covered enough baseball to know how those go. Kyle Schwarber probably wanted to stay in Philly, and the Phillies knew that, and they probably told them, look, go out and get offers. Come with us with your best offer, and we'll see if we matched it. The Orioles made his best offer. He went back to Philly. He got the deal he wanted, and I don't think you can begrudge Michael Eyes for that. But they do have to still take big swings, and thank God. Like, look, they need pitching. Everyone knows it, but their offense was painful to watch last year, and I thought they needed a power hitter that'll take some pressure off the kids, Gunnar, Holiday, Cowser. Those guys shouldn't need to feel they have to carry the offense. And you get a legit slugger in the middle of the order that's been there, that's performed in October, and is not afraid to be the leading man in a lineup. That would be a huge piece. And I think you got to turn attention hard to Pete Alonso and Kyle Tucker, and in addition to the pitching pursuits. But yeah, I wasn't as demoralized as some people were, because the bar is so low there that I'm like, I'm happy they're throwing around that kind of money, those kind of offers. I mean, that's not a charity offer. Like back in the day, they made an offer to Mark Teixeira just to say, see, we tried, but this was not one of those offers. This was clearly the best offer he had, and the Phillies were willing to match it, and he wanted to stay. So no harm, no foul there, but I think it sends the right message that they're in it. They're trying to improve.
Yeah. Regardless of who the rotation is moving forward, if they're playing October baseball again, they better get some run support.
I know
that has not been the case in recent years in this new era of Orioles.
No, they haven't hit it all. Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks for tracking down Eric. We do have a couple super chats on the way out. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. That was awesome. He was, and how about talk about like how human he is, right? He's just so down to earth that why not? You interrupted my interview. Sure, I'll give you a selfie. Like, why not?
I wondered if somebody walked in his backyard and just said, I was like, but I didn't realize he was at school. Obviously, he's out in San Diego, so it's 3 hours. But
I love it.
Oh, we got a Cole rip.
Yeah, look at this. Colin Donahue says, Cole pulling our pass rush like on Sunday, not showing up. Our pass rush is awful. We certainly discussed that at times throughout. Sammy had a question for you earlier on in the stream. Sammy wrote, Jeff, do you think John goes if this continues?
Wow. I made a couple calls on that front today. Obviously, I think that's just going to heat up. And I've said this before on the show and written it. Like, Steve Bisciotti doesn't play his cards to anybody. Like, only his innermost circle. And he's the only one that's going to decide that. I don't get the vibe that that's a foregone conclusion if they don't make the playoffs, but I do get the vibe that there will be massive changes. You cannot not have changes when you're a Super Bowl prohibitive, like one of the favorites, and you could be eliminated basically from the playoffs before, like in like week 15 or 16. You can't run that back. That you just can't. But how high will the changes go? Will it be the coordinators? Will it go as high as John? Will it be front office changes? Will there be a massive roster move? Man, I really don't know. I thought it was going to really have to get bad, and there's going to have to be some bad locker room splintering and some more embarrassing issues if John Harbaugh was going to lose his job. But man, losing 5 games at home, a couple no-shows, losing games in the division that you shouldn't. The entire, God, how many the franchise quarterback regressing? That is as alarming as anything. Now, Lamar there are reasons for it, injuries and some of the supporting cast, but some of it's on him too. You can't have a franchise quarterback regressing at 28 years old. So Bisciotti's going to have to answer, Harbaugh's going to have to answer some hard questions. So is Bisciotti, so is DaCosta. It's not something I'm banking on like that I think is going to happen. But I'd be shocked if there weren't massive changes, if this there's not some miraculous turnaround here. I just don't know how high the changes are gonna go up. And I want to be perfectly honest with that. I just there's nothing worse as a reporter that's saying, you don't have a great feel for it. But with how Steve runs his team, it's almost impossible to get a good feel for what they're gonna do with the coaching staff. But man, I'd be hard to imagine at the very least there won't be coordinator changes, but we'll see how this plays out here.
I'm sure it'll be a similar type of offseason when it comes to Eric and Lamar's dealings too, right? With the extension. That's just how they do it.
But what do you do, Bobby? I mean, like that's the thing that would concern me. It's just like I think a primary reason Lamar is not playing well is injuries. Like I do, but like, how sure are you of that? Like, honestly, because the older he gets, the more banged up he's going to get. He's only 28, but he's not all of a sudden going to be, 24 again. Like it's going to be a challenge every year to stay ahead, and defenses are getting faster. Like somebody asked me today about Lamar because everyone's trying to get to the bottom of it. And right now he looks like a quarterback who's learning to play without his superpower. And his superpower is his athleticism and his elusiveness and his explosiveness. And that doesn't mean he can't do other things at a high level. He certainly can, but there's more of attention on those things. And Eric Weddle even alluded to it. And he even said, Lamar playing more consistent is the most important thing for this team. And I agree with that. It's tough to win. And I'm not just saying it's on Lamar, but it's tough to win when your offense is making mistakes, not finishing drives. But I don't know what they do with the Lamar situation. You can't have him back making $75 million cap space. Like, you can't build a great team, and you're not just going to let him go. So, man, Eric DaCosta is facing one heck of an offseason, and they don't have to confront it now, but they lose Sunday, and we're going to start talking about all those questions real quick.
There's no doubt. I mean, how about the messaging on Tomlin leading into the weekend, which is since quieted, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, all the insiders are coming forth with the same, scoop on that. He's not going to get fired. Like it'll be a mutual parting of ways, or when he wants the opportunity for, that's what my interpretation of it was. And so you wonder if a similar type of Harbaugh discussion ramps up should this thing go south even more than it already has.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know how Steve's going to react. I mean, you hear he's frustrated. He's a competitive guy. He's got to be pissed off. I mean, he has a great seat in M&T Bank Stadium. I'm sure he saw the rows of empty seats when the game started. I'm sure he sees and reads things, and you could mistake his leadership style, but it's not from it's not from he's not afraid to make tough decisions. You don't become a billionaire for being afraid to make tough decisions. God, man, this off season is going to be, I don't know what I'm dreading more, that 5:50 a.m. flight out of Cincinnati on Monday morning, the possibility of driving in the snow through the night in Green Bay 2 weeks later, or having to deal with some of that stuff and kind of some of the commentary on that. It's going to be an interesting couple months for this franchise.
We haven't even mentioned the pending free agent list. That's a long.
I know. It's like 24. Yeah.
Come on. The chosen one, Jared, gets us on out of here. And he writes, if Rodgers is a catch in possession, so is likely, but you can't cry over spilled milk now. Mistakes, guard play, and no pass rush is the death of us. And again, as we've done throughout the hour, Lamar obviously is not above blame there as well. And I thought that was some good pointed analysis from Eric in a level-headed way. And he wanted to be clear too. He does not want to be that guy in his retirement years here as he one day gets into coaching that gets on, shows like this and rips guys, because he knows how difficult being under the microscope is. But he also made it clear that there's some areas, whether it's the footwork, whether it's the mechanical, operational part of Lamar, Jeff, that's gone awry now for over a month.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think it's like a guy learning to live without his superpowers and having to lean on things that he still is good at, but may not be that aren't the part of the combination that makes him the most dangerous dual threat quarterback in football. And I think those other things, as he has to force to lean on some of those other things, he's doing it while he's not practicing regularly, while the offensive line has been shaky. I don't think that the supporting cast has made a lot of mistakes around him. So there's so many additional variables, but he just doesn't, we've said it for weeks. It'll be interesting what he cops to how hurt he is after the season. I'm guessing he's going to continue to say, I'm fine. I was healthy enough to play. But yeah, he doesn't look like the same guy. I think we saw late second quarter, the rest of the game, we saw some really good signs. Like, that's as good as he's looked in a while. But still, we also saw kind of the malaise on some of the decision making on the 2-minute drive that wasn't up to snuff. We saw him miss a few others. And I said this 2 straight shows. Like, he for years has masked the Ravens' weaknesses. And what's been most jarring, he's not been able to do that over the last month of the season. And I know people are going to say they put too much on him. You look what Josh Allen's done in Buffalo. And for years, Mahomes has masked their weaknesses, and he seems to have tired and run out of magic this year to do it. Your franchise quarterback, your $50 million, soon to be maybe $70 million or whatever. That's the kind of guy. That's what you ask of him. And I just think physically he's just not been capable of doing that. And then some other parts of his game have kind of dipped, probably related to not practicing that much and kind of losing some confidence and some of the other issues they've had around him.
But to your point, and maybe ending it on an optimistic note going into a massive week, those quarterback keepers on the right-hand side, running away from Watt, he looked willing and that's encouraging moving forward if that's a sign of what's to come potentially for anything that he has left to unload the tank over this next month. And obviously, I'm sure everything's on the table going into Cincinnati.
And look, Bobby, he cares. Like like he said, his frustrations through the roof. I was chasing down officials in the bowels of M&T Bank Stadium and trying to get him on the phone Sunday, so I didn't see the scene with my own eyes. But he's sitting in the corner of his locker, slumped, still in uniform, almost with tears in his eyes, with the head coach next to him. I mean, this is killing him. I mean. Everyone knew what was at stake this season, and for it to go the way it has, where it just seems like it's just been one thing after the other, and a lot of it's fallen at his feet. I'm sure it's hitting him hard. I'm sure if there's any silver lining here, and this will be stuff we can talk about going forward, if the Ravens don't get back into this, you hope there was some epiphany between the Ravens and Lamar Jackson after this season. And I mean that, like, the communication between the two needs to be better. There's certain things that they need to change, how they go about things. I'm not saying things are bad there at all. I'm just saying, like, you need to kind of you need to take some good out of what's been a very bad situation, and make some changes in how things are kind of done and approached. And, and if there's any silver lining that comes out of this, you hope that both sides reach an epiphany that we can't go through this year again. We need to do everything in our power to do things a little differently and to try to turn things around, because there's no rebuilding here with this football team. You know, you just signed Mark Andrews. You just signed Derrick Henry in the offseason. You just signed Kyle Hamilton. They're going to sign other guys in the coming weeks. So this is not a rebuilding situation. If they're going to win a Super Bowl, it's going to be on the back of Lamar Jackson, and they need to figure this out. They need to get him playing better. They need to get him in a better shape health-wise, and kind of go from there, because this team will not make progress until he starts playing like the quarterback he's capable of playing.
In other words, the core is still intact.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to lose some guys, no doubt. Yeah. Like, likely he's going to be gone, and Van Noy won't be back, and
they got to make a Travis Jones decision.
Yeah, I think they'll try to get him back, but who knows? We don't know if Matabike will ever play for them, and there's going to be a lot of different faces. Falalele is a free agent. I don't know if you heard that anywhere, Bobby. And I mean, I couldn't help myself with our sick Canadian friend, hopefully watching from his bed. But there'll be a lot of changes. But everything about this team going forward needs to be getting Lamar Jackson back in the right frame of mind and in top performance. And for a myriad of reasons, some beyond Lamar's control, that just hasn't happened this year.
Shimmy Boy gets us on out of here, and he writes, Bills and Chiefs lines were solid. If you have enough time, even okay receivers will eventually get open.
I think the offensive line played well enough to win the last 2 weeks. I know people are going to complain about that. I think they did a pretty good job on Watt and Highsmith. Did they and Hayward? Did they make their plays? Yes. Hayward's going to be a Hall of Famer. Watt probably too. Highsmith is a Pro Bowl pass rusher. Did you think you were going to shut those guys out? Like, look, I'm not masking the fact that the guard play has been bad. It has been. And Roger Rosengarten and Stanley have struggled at times. I mean, Weddle pointed out Linderbaum, and I don't think he's played. So it's been no question their offensive line hasn't played good enough. But I mean, there are times when you get protection and they're still throwing the ball around. The ball's hitting the ground. I think it may start up front and with Lamar, but I thought they blocked well enough the last 2 weeks to win 2 football games. And they didn't do the reason they lost was not their offensive line play the last 2 weeks. I know people probably disagree because that's what we want to always blame it on. But I think we have to look at other places too. We know what that group is, and it hasn't been good enough. But nor has a lot of other position groups too on the team. That they didn't have a great, I thought in the past, it's not like they've had this dominant offensive line. They basically have the same offensive line the last year minus McCary, and they've and it's been bad. I think last year they had a way of kind of masking some of that group's issues. This year they just have ran out of ways to do it.
Maybe this week we're not talking about the offensive line the way we are, if not for Rashad Bateman's drop on third down with only one man to miss and a whole lot of daylight to get in for 6, if not for Lamar's interception, the lofted pass with not enough air under it to Rasheen Ali, that goes immediately for 6 the other way. I mean, right there, that's a potential 14-point swing right there. So
yeah, I know. And
anyway.
like the defense, the play on, like, what was that with Jalen Warren? I mean, if Jalen Warren didn't score a touchdown, Rodgers could have pitched it to Freiermuth, who's streaking down the middle of the field, and he would have scored a touchdown. Like, to have a breakdown where 2 guys have free runs at the end zone on a key third down, I mean, that's pathetic. That's just bad ball. Like, Weddle used to call it bad ball. Like, whenever a guy made a mistake, he used to say, that's bad ball. That was really bad ball.
I mean, we could go on and on and on about this. On the opposite side of the ball on third down, what John admitted was wrong was on him, and the disconnect between him and the box, him and Monken. I mean, that play was dead in the water. That sets up 4th and 5.
And then like they start the personnel, like they start the second half, and I wish I had this exactly. Like the first play, Urban's on the field. I believe it was Okoye, Ajabo's on the field. Like they went it seemed like a bigger package they were in. Rodgers had all day, ran around, picked a spot, and then he hit Metcalf for, I think it was a 30-something yard or maybe even longer. And you can't cover DK Metcalf for that long. Like, you can't blame the secondary for that. Like, even a receiving group that struggled in this, like the Steelers have beyond Metcalf, they're going to get open if they have that time. And it's just like, that's the one thing where you're pointing at coaching. Okay, well, like, what are we doing here? Like, why were you and I was talking to people today about the Pittsburgh perspective, and seemed like the Ravens were really dedicating a lot to try to stop the run and doing a lot of one-on-one stuff, and they attacked him, in the cover one and all that. They attacked him. They liked those matchups, and Pittsburgh didn't run the ball at all. That's good, but you also got beat for a chorus of big plays, and so I think you have to ask some questions about the game plan there too and the personnel.
Heck, we haven't even talked about special teams.
Oh,
I
God,
mean,
yeah.
Tyler,
yeah.
Look, Tyler's passed the test more often than not in his rookie season. He gets his first dose of Raven Steelers, and he has a landing zone issue. He has a missed extra point. They don't opt to go to him, and what they could have, right? I think it was 27-19. They opted to wait a second. When did they opt to not kick a field goal? It would have been on 4th and 5. Right, you had the option to go field goal there. Whatever
I think you have to go for it there at that point. With what was there, like 3 minutes left or lower? But I mean, the Keandre Jackson penalty was a huge play in the game. They're getting nothing from their kick returns all of a sudden, and I still think Horton disagreed last week. I still think Wester's been tentative since the Browns fumble. Loop's issues that you mentioned. I mean.
And you know what? Even when the landing zone issue wasn't the case, he still was kicking off short once or twice.
Yeah, and I think Steelers started a couple drives with kickoffs right around the 40. That's too much. You're giving them up too much space, and it was they earned that loss too. I mean, even beyond the officials, it was a team-wide loss. All 3 phases did not play well enough, and all 3 phases, were outplayed in the game's decisive moments by the Steelers, and that can't happen because most people would tell you the Ravens have a more talented team.
And now at 6-7, season's on the line going into Cincinnati. We'll be back a week from tonight. Hopefully, our Canadian man will be back as well. Hopefully he feels better. I'm sure 77's getting cursed out much throughout the show back up there in Ottawa. So appreciate Eric Weddle for joining. Great job booking him. He was great. Hopefully you guys got something from that, and we'll have that repurposed for you on the collective in our playlist section, the short form section in the coming days. So appreciate Sleeper for the continued support. We will be back 1 week from tonight as always, and we'll be revisiting everything that took place, obviously, the 48 hours prior on how things shake out in Cincinnati. So for Jeff, I'm Bobby signing off from tonight's collective. Thank you guys for being with us. If you could on the way out, like the video, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Thanks to Sleeper for the continued support, and we'll catch up with you guys next week. Have an awesome night.